everyone, Nick Reagan here with the We The Palmetto podcast. We are bringing you a bonus episode today. I got an opportunity to do an interview with Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette last week after that second GOP debate. Of course, that was her first GOP debate, and we talked about that. And then I also asked her about a number of questions, particularly important to folks living here in the Lowcountry, in Charleston, Mount Pleasant, all of those areas that haven't really been talked about just yet. For example, one of the things we ended up talking about was the issue of shrimp dumping in Mount Pleasant. That's a big issue here, and got some answers from her on that front. So please enjoy this bonus episode of We The Palmetto. And of course, if you've got any questions that you want to ask our elected leaders, make sure you join the conversation by sending me an email at wcscpolitics@live5news.com. All right, I've got the Lieutenant Governor, Pamela Evette, with me now. I know you have such a chaotic schedule right now, full of campaigning, also some, official job duty things you've got going on. So thanks for coming by. Thanks for making the time.
Well, Nick, thanks for having me. It's always fun. This is my second time sitting here with you to do this, and it's been great.
How's the campaign been going so far?
Campaign's been going amazing. Momentum continues to build every day. People coming out, people talking about my newsletter. I think that's been a really great thing. It's for people that can't get out, right, and see where you are because it's a statewide election. They love seeing where I've been and what people are saying. And so we've been really trying to get our supporters involved, but keep them informed at the same time.
Now, we just wrapped up that second debate.
Yep.
First off, how do you think you did?
I think I did fine. I think it was good. I liked my answers. They were from the heart. It's the things people believe in. I'm the only candidate that campaigning has gone, I know some of my opponents have said, well, I've been to all 46 counties. I've been to all 46 counties many times too. But with the sheer intent of sitting down and having town halls, having roundtables, just sitting down to listen to what people want, what they want to see in their communities. It was eye-opening. And I think that's what has created such momentum, is knowing that I won't just be the governor for big business, but I love small business as much as I love big business, and see how those two things dovetail together. And not just the governor for our urban and suburban areas, but a governor for our rural areas, really taking a lot of time and really listening to our ag community, listening to our forestry community, because those two industries together, they pretty much arm wrestle hospitality and tourism for the number one revenue generator in our state.
We're going to talk more about farmers here in just a moment, and
Sure.
the forestry industry wider as well. But I'm just curious if you still think that missing the first debate was the right decision. It seemed like everybody kind of came out and was a little bit better than they were in their first performance. Do you stand by missing the first debate?
I do. My reason for not doing it has not changed, and I still think it wasn't the right thing to do. I think trying to make a fundraising opportunity off of the people who are campaigning and trying to be the next governor, I don't believe that's right. And I think what it ended up doing was hurting the grassroots people. And, those are the people I consider friends. I don't never had a problem with our state party. I've never tried to have a problem with anybody. But those grassroots people are the ones that hold meetings and bake cookies and put out signs and make phone calls and door knock and all the things that make our party so strong. And to think that there wasn't a real outlet, it was kind of what I have heard is the outlet was kind of oh, we have extra tickets, so let's see who we can get to pull from. It just didn't seem right because, again, they're the heart and soul of our party.
Sure. I also want to ask one more question on the campaign side of things before we jump into a few more policy-based questions. But, you're obviously the head of the ticket this year around. But you've done a statewide campaign before with Governor McMaster.
Yeah.
How does your experience in this campaign differ from 4 years ago, 8 years ago?
Well, you're right. I was running as his lieutenant governor, and so it's different, right? I was kind of there to be with him, to talk about what we wanted to do together, but the focus was always on the top of the ticket. everybody wants to know who their governor's going to be. It's, if you're looking for a business governor, which the sentiment and the feeling I'm getting from across South Carolina is people want a business governor. They want somebody who's signed the front of paychecks, who has started a business from scratch, who understands the pain of having a government that is too big and actually too intrusive. And so, that is the top of the ticket. That is what they're looking at. So, it's now on the spotlight. Before, I was not. I was there to talk about me, and maybe people wanted to know about who I was and what I thought and what I believed in. But the executive of the state is the governor.
Right. You're a supportive character on that ticket.
That's right. And people, although were very friendly and kind to me, and the governor wanted me to talk about my background, they really wanted to know what the governor was going to do. And so it does. It's a lot more pressure this time around, but I love it. I love the people of South Carolina. I'm a people person. And so, I have a pretty rigid schedule. It is from the crack of dawn until late at night. And people ask me all the time, like, how do you keep up that pace? It's like, I really like people. Like, I genuinely like people. And so when I could be tired, it could be my 9th or 10th event of the day between my official duties and campaign duties. But I walk into the last and I might feel tired, and then I see people.
Sure.
And they're energized and excited, and their energy is something that just lifts me up. And so it's been great. We have 46 more days to go until the primary. And so I'm going to continue to outwork everybody.
Yeah, the pressure is definitely on. You are at the top of the ticket, and that means that you will set policy should you be the next governor. Let's talk about one of those policies that's really big right now, which is aid for farmers. I believe the state legislature is taking up a couple of bills that could give anywhere $35 to $50 million in aid for struggling farmers. They're struggling with gas prices. They're struggling with fertilizer prices, and they're struggling with this weather that, we haven't seen a drop of rain or substantive rain in a while now. Yeah. Where do you fall on these couple of bills that are being talked about right now? And what would you do as governor to help farmers in situations like this, where they're losing millions of dollars a year because of various factors?
Nick, I'm so glad you brought this up, because I'm the only candidate that's running for governor who has really sat down with farmers, just one-on-one and in a small group, to say, please tell me, what you're facing and how can we help you as a state. And, I've promised to our ag community, I've said this to the Farm Bureau, is that when I am governor, I will have an ag forestry liaison in the governor's office as a full-time position, just like we have commerce, so that we can know in real time what our farmers and what our forestry community needs. And that becomes critical. And I think what people don't really understand is just our farmers are resilient. And we all know that. It's their best quality. But because they're so resilient, they don't complain. They're not out there, they're not, beating the pavement and telling everybody how hard this life is. And so sometimes it's overlooked. And, the fact that we haven't had rain, the fact that gas prices are up, the fact that fertilizer costs are up. I mean, when I was out in Marlborough County meeting with farmers, on my way there, I was just, Googling they were harvesting corn. And I was Googling the commodity price of corn. Corn's commodity price that day was $4 a bushel. Their break-even cost was $5 to $6, they were telling me. So literally, they got up that morning and were going to work all day to harvest corn, knowing they would make a loss. And so I think we have to do everything we can to help them. President Trump has been very clear that food security is national security. And, I kid kind of tongue in cheek, but not really, is that you thought people were angry during COVID when they couldn't get toilet paper. Imagine the level of anger if people couldn't get food. And so we have to do everything we can to support our farmers.
So just on the legislative piece, though, do you think somewhere between $35 and $50 million in aid for farmers is enough right now, or too little, or just right?
Well, the Department of Agriculture, and I think Patrick Hadden, who sits in the House, he is a farmer. And so I believe if that's what he's asking, he's actually boots on the ground. They're getting those numbers, right? So I have to rely on the fact, and that's what I would look for, right? Who are the farmers? You know, you can give me all the data, but as the farming community, the Farm Bureau, the Department of Agriculture, they should be coming in. They should know spot on what we need, and then we need to do what we can.
But you would sign some kind of relief like that.
Absolutely.
You know, you've already mentioned it that President Trump is doing something to help farmers for sure. I think, though, that it can also be said that tariffs have hurt farmers and the war in Iran has hurt farmers as well. I mean, do you stand with President Trump on you know, these issues that have created economic pressures for farmers?
I absolutely stand with the president. You know, let's talk about why it came to this. Because presidents before President Trump did not have the backbone to stand up and say, enough is enough. And if there's one thing I'm proud of with this president is that he has stood for American farmers, he has stood for American industry and American workers. And I thought he did it very simplistically. I wish that, you know, they would get shown at least every other day about, you know, the level of disparity between tariffs we were charging countries and what they were charging us. And when you looked at it very black and white, very simplistically, the majority of Americans, when they first saw that, were kind of taken back. Like, I can't believe this. So either you're going to fix the problem now, or you're going to kick it down the road like prior presidents have been doing and create an even bigger problem. When it comes to the war in Iran, we should believe people when they tell us that they are calling on death to America. We should believe them. And we were to a point where, you know, you can look back at the news footage. Every president said, Iran is our biggest threat, but they did nothing. And that's the one thing I'm proud of from President Trump is that when he sees a danger, he takes care of it. Because his main focus as president is to be the best commander-in-chief to our armed services. He is going to be the best president standing up for the American people and American business. And that's exactly what I'll do as governor. You got to stand up for the people you represent.
I want to keep talking about some of the issues that we haven't yet really talked about,
Sure.
like on the debate stage and in some other public forums. But one that's particularly notable around here is Shrimpgate, right?
Okay.
If you followed Shrimpgate, you know that basically the shrimpers caught a bunch of restaurants selling shrimp that is not from South Carolina that may have been advertised as locally caught shrimp. It's a big deal for our Shem Creek shrimpers, which is a tongue twister to say. There's a bill in the House right now that would basically require folks to label the origin of their shrimp. Is that something that you would be supportive of?
You know, I look at it from a different angle. Is when I read some of these articles, much broader than just South Carolina, is where are we getting our food from? And when you talk to people want to know where their pharmaceuticals are coming from. They want to know the point of origin. They want to know where food is coming from, right? Point of origin. And so, yeah, I do not think it is bad to label and say, hey, this is where food is being sourced from. I think that's taken on a life of its own over the last few years. You've seen more and more, manufacturers actually putting labeling on, and I think the general public really appreciates that.
I just wonder if there's anything that you could do from the executive position to help out the shrimpers around here, because, you know, at one point there were like 80 of them on Shem Creek, and now there's less than like 10. I mean, the industry is being dominated by foreign shrimpers that are dumping their shrimp into the Lowcountry and driving the price down and creating hardship for kind of a culture industry here. I mean, is there anything that you can do as governor on an issue like this?
Absolutely. Encourage everybody to buy local. Exactly what you're saying. You know, we have so many. I was just out at Newport News before I came here. We have so many amazing large companies, but we have just as many amazing small companies that we can be proud of. And so I've been talking to Commerce about how do we highlight our small businesses? How do we highlight local industry? Because, as I'm out there talking, everybody wants to buy local. Everybody wants to support their neighbor. That's why you see Main Street just building up, because wherever you go, it is just amazing how many people want to come out at night. Go to any, even small town, go to Greenville, go to Spartanburg, go to Charleston, big towns. Those main streets are filling up. People want to see, their local shop owner. They want to know who they're buying from, and they love to see things going on, whether it be small music festivals or people selling crafts on a Saturday morning or farmers markets. Big thing. I think as the executive of the state, really highlighting what's going on and encouraging people to get out and do it. It doesn't take much. I find most people just don't really know what's happening.
Now, you've already received the endorsement from the American Heritage Association.
Yes.
And I believe you describe yourself as a fierce defender of South Carolina's historic monuments and things like that. Would you have intervened in the removal of the Calhoun statue?
Yes, definitely would have said that is rewriting history, right? Moving down a statue is all it's doing is pushing something more to the back, taking our history and pushing it down the line. And that is not the right thing to do. History never changes, right? No matter if you like the part of history that you're talking about or not, the history doesn't change. And I think that is a huge problem. Kids have to know, how our country started and where it is now. As a mom, take aside the fact that I'm the lieutenant governor, I want my kids to understand where we started and how far we've come. And I think we should be very proud of how far we've come.
Would you put the monument back up? I mean, can you even do that as governor?
No, I don't. You know what? I guess I'll take that back. I'm not sure if I could just make an executive order and say, here, put the monument back up, because, it's going on property. I know that the National Heritage Association is looking right now to put it back up and get it back in a public place where it could be seen. On Saturday, it was the first time it was displayed on Johns Island since it was taken down. It is a mammoth. When it's sitting up on a pedestal, you don't realize how big these statues are.
It's big.
But it is really big. And so, but they are actively looking. There were a lot of people there in support of that. And so, we're hoping to see it and get it displayed real soon. And we have a bill going through really strengthening the Heritage Act here and allowing, groups like the National Heritage Association to actually be able to intervene when these things are happening. If our Attorney General won't do it, right? I mean, if he wouldn't do it, can they intervene? Can they be the one to jump in court?
All right, as we wrap this up, you just mentioned the Attorney General. He's already picked his lieutenant governor. When are you going to make your pick, and who are you considering?
Well, it was funny. We kind of started out this podcast by talking about, traveling around the state and what were people saying. I have so focused on the people of South Carolina and getting to know me. And that's what I've been doing. Sure. There are great candidates. I'm sure if I sat down all around the state, I could probably draw a list of 10 or 12, probably more. But when my team says, this is the right time to do it, most people don't realize that at this point in the campaign, having an attorney general name, that that lieutenant governor doesn't come on the ballot.
Right.
It is solely who's running for governor that shows up on the ballot on June 9th. Technically, you don't need to choose the lieutenant governor till whoever wins, right? And then they have until August to actually put that name to get it on the ballot for the general election. So
it sounds like you're going to wait until after the primary. I feel like that's kind of standard, but maybe, I don't know, or wait till after the primary?
I've always said I have an amazing team that I've assembled on this. And when they sit me down and say, okay, today is the day we should really start. Right. We should start really looking at who you would want to consider, and let's go through that and let's have conversation. Then I'll do it. But until then, my sole focus is to continue to get around the state.
All right, not going to pin you down on this.
Yeah, you're not going to pin me down on this one.
Fair enough. I had to try. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. What is your message? What's the most important message of your campaign that you want to leave with voters?
Well, there's two important things: getting out to vote. Right, June 9th, very important primary. All of our constitutional officers are up. Our federal House representatives are up. Our state House representatives are up. So we have a federal senator that's up. We need everybody to get out, because less than 13% is really dismal. And you get the government you vote for. The second message I have more about me is there's a lot of people in this race. But I think it is critical to look at what our qualifications are. What is our resume? I mean, that's how you would hire anybody if you were hiring somebody to work at your business. And so I've been telling everybody and ending everything I talk about with, look at all of us and ask yourself one important question. Who would I hire to be the CEO of my company? Because if you wouldn't hire somebody to be the CEO of your company, you probably shouldn't elect them to be the CEO of your state. And it's important not to get lost in the spin messaging, right? I have candidates who will say, well, I headed a department, and so therefore I employed a lot of people. A lot different when you're spending somebody else's money and running something, or when you're staying up all night trying to solve problems because everything you own is on the line. That gives you a different perspective of how things should go and what is acceptable and not. And so look at our resumes, ask yourself that one critical question, and then go to PamelaEvette.com and sign up for my newsletter and volunteer, because our volunteers are amazing, and donate, right? There's a donate button on there. It takes a lot to get your message across the state. So, and then you can see who I am and get pictures of my family. They're amazing, and see where we are and where we're going, and stop and say hi if we're going to be in your neck of the woods. I'd love to shake your hand and ask you for your vote, because my goal is to be bullish and win this thing without a runoff, right? Nobody likes a runoff. So I always figure if I can outwork everybody and I can just get to enough people to let them hear my story and shake their hand, that we can do it.
Yeah, 50% would be incredible if anybody actually managed to get up to 50% in the primary. I think there's a lot of strong candidates in the race right now, so that's a tall task, but we'll see. You may be able to do it.
Well, I have the governor's endorsement.
There you go.
And he's wildly popular, so that was really meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and you guys are always posting new endorsements that you're getting every week, every day, etc. So
that is really heartwarming. You can't imagine when you're running as hard as you are and somebody else comes out and endorses. It's like, wow, that's wonderful.
All right, well, I'll let you get back to your very busy, packed schedule. Thank you again for coming in. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, thank you.
Nick, thanks so much.
All right, that's going to be it for this episode of We The Palmetto. If you want to join the conversation again, make sure you're sending me an email, wcscpolitics@live5news.com. And of course, you can catch every episode on any of the podcast platforms that you listen to, or the video versions on the Live 5 streaming service. Just search for Live 5 on apps like Roku, Fire TV, and of course, Apple TV as well. All right, thanks for joining me, and I will catch you in the next episode.